Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Joyce. Thank you, James, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here today because the discussion topic today is very close to my heart. As you can see, for obvious reasons, I look very different to most of you in this room. Actually, there are a lot of you that look very different. But all my life, I have been acutely aware that I look very different. I spent 40 years of my life outside of Asia, and I can tell you that growing up Asian in an European environment wasn't easy. Racism is definitely something that happens in New Zealand, but I can tell you that New Zealand is the least racist place I have ever lived in, and I've been to many places. This very discussion paper and today is evidence of that New Zealanders want to do something about it, and I'm so thrilled that this is happening. In 2006, when our report on Korean migrants came out, it was published, and the media was quick to pick up on the ugliness of racism, the egg throwing and the name calling, but it was the sensational bit that they were interested in. My colleagues and I, my colleague Dr. Richard Folks is here, we were quite distressed, he was quite distressed about the unemployment and underemployment issue and the stories that our respondents were telling us. It cannot be acceptable in any society, wherever you live, to have highly educated and highly qualified professionals like doctors, nurses, computer programmers, engineers, and teachers doing menial, unskilled jobs like driving taxis, mopping supermarket floors, cleaning toilets. Now, it is an utter waste of human resource, wouldn't you agree? Yep. And how do we justify such treatment of these people after we have invited them here based on their professional skills? No doubt. At the time of that report in 2006, we had hoped, and Richard in particular, he was keen to get extra funding to do more research on unemployment and underemployment. But sadly, there was no money to be found anywhere, so the research never happened. It would have been a very important research back then. As I was discussing this paper with my husband actually a couple of nights ago, he, just out of the blue, he said, "Sue, do you know the difference between a recession and a depression?" And I thought, oh, okay, now what is he on about? Now, I don't know whether you've heard, but apparently he says that the difference between a recession and a depression goes like this. Recession is when your neighbor has lost his job, and depression is when I've lost mine. So if you're wondering what this has to do with this topic today, look, just indulge me a little, please. The kind of racism that I have experienced and that James was talking about is the annoying kind, you know, the rude service at the supermarket, maybe the shopkeeper that ignores you when you walk into a shop, the funny looks in the street. That's bearable. But I do get angry when it happens to my children, no doubt. So racism does happen in New Zealand, but when you are an Asian migrant and you are either unemployed or underemployed, and then I say, someone like me or James comes along and says, "Oh, but I understand what you're feeling, but you know what, racism isn't that bad." Do you think they would agree with us? Unemployment and underemployment affects not only that one person, but also his or her entire family. The loss of dignity is unimaginable and unspeakable. Loss of face to your spouse, your children, your friends. The utter sense of despair and failure. In the Asian culture, it's not something you will talk about, and they cannot see a way out. But in true Asian fashion, like my parents would say, battle on. No time for complaining, just carry on with your life. These people are experiencing the worst kind of discrimination, but can I really empathize with them? And can You, James, or anyone in this room? Possibly not. Because at best we can try to understand and sympathize with them. You see, nothing is as bad as they say it is until it happens to you. Recession versus depression. Now, for my doctoral thesis, I have been examining the experiences of New Zealand SMEs as exporters to Asia. And you're wondering where I'm going with this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the preliminary findings. It hasn't been written up yet, so it has been suggested that overcoming the language and culture barrier is a key ingredient in ensuring the success of your business as an exporter to Asia. Most of those surveyed indicated that having an employee in their company who understands not only the language of the targeted Asian market, but more importantly, the culture of that market, that is going to be, and it has been for them, the single most effective method of overcoming the barrier. Okay, now on the same note, it's interesting to say that the majority of those SMEs that were surveyed have said that contracting services of professional translating and interpreting services has been the least effective. Okay, now this is due to the fact that in cross-cultural communication you need more than just translating words. You need to know how to say it, who to say it to, when to say it. At the cross-cultural, the cultural tips, it's a minefield. The employee of my company, for example, if that person had the full understanding of the language and the culture, now that person will be able to give you the full picture because that person understands not only that language, that culture, but also my company and my culture. One of my case studies was a technology company in Auckland, and he has been hugely successful in South Korea. And he now has a multi-million-dollar turnover with his companies, and he has expanded all over Asia. Now, when the CEO, he said that, when I interviewed him, he said that when he was doing the marketing research prior to entering South Korea, he made a conscious and educated decision to hire a Korean-speaking person because he knew that would be the key to his success, and he was dead right. Part of my research also sought to look at the perception and attitudes of New Zealand SMEs to Asian languages. Now, they acknowledge that in international business, English is not always enough. But learning an Asian language for most was not an option. I have briefly outlined here a few of my findings of my research, but where do we go from here? Well, New Zealand boasts a large pool of talented, multicultural, bilingual and or multilingual, educated, keen, hard-working Asians. What are we doing? Why are we not using them? The advice I offer today is based on the results of my research, which clearly show that there is real economic benefit for New Zealand businesses if they are prepared to embrace the opportunities available to them here. They don't need to look elsewhere. I would like to ask our New Zealand government to find some practical and strategic solutions to help more Asian migrants find employment in New Zealand companies sooner rather than later, before they go away. But what kind of solutions? Some sort of training incentives offered through maybe greens, maybe NZTE, maybe something in collaboration with business organizations and chambers. I don't have the answers, but I do hope I have given you all something to think about. Thank you.